So you did mushrooms both times?
It was interesting. It was softer. It was far more masculine in temperament, but softer. And then the second one was feminine in temperament, but kind of harsh, like kind of, it sort of was like teasing. I had the most healing experience of my life the first time. Every iteration of me from the age of, from a newborn to 19. And then I thought I stopped there, but then it kept going. And then I met myself in the future.
All right, guys, we got Kasim here coming off an injury. Biking.
Yeah, but I'm back.
Yeah, he's back, guys. And he just said it was an eye-opening moment.
It was fun to be in pain. Is that weird to say?
Yeah.
Like, dude, this isn't a cry for help. I don't need therapy. But I'm 40 years old, or I'm 39. I've got 2 little boys, and your days just get so routine. And I went head over the handlebars on my bike, and like bad. And I got up, and I was like, that was awesome. You know, like all of a sudden, because you don't realize what it takes to bring you into your body. Right. And obviously, I don't want to go run around and hurt myself, but I would like to just position my existence so that I feel. You know, like you don't realize how much you're not feeling.
Yeah, we're getting deep off the bat.
Right out of the gate. Yeah.
No, but that's deep from you because you sold the company, you've amassed massive wealth, so you're kind of lost, right? And you're kind of looking for that purpose.
Isn't that funny the way that works? Yeah. I was reading Richard Rohr, and he's a Franciscan monk type, and he was talking about the trap of success. And he said that getting caught in success is getting caught in your false self. Because then people talk to you about, oh, you made an exit, and that's who you are now. And you have to kind of take that and swallow it. And it's so easy to do because you're rewarded for that behavior. And the projection that other people make ends up being your identity, and it's such a gilded cage.
Wow.
So how do you break that? And I don't know. Like I'm not here with answers, Sean. I'm here with questions. But yeah, I was terror stricken as a child. I was raised in poverty, right? Like American poverty. Yeah. And I always thought money would solve all my problems. And what's interesting is it's not the reverse, because a lot of people that make a bunch of money are like, oh, I was wrong. The safety's beautiful. Love that. And I love feeling safe. And I love knowing I'm never gonna have to worry about that again. Yeah. But it isn't the answer. You know, like there's no purpose to money stand alone. It's what money can do for you. And that's been a really fun journey too. Like just figuring out like, oh wow, look at the options available to me. Yeah. So
have you pursued the spiritual awakening?
Oh,
psychedelic stuff.
Yeah. I have. I've gone on 2. This is funny. I haven't talked about this at all. So I've done 2 journeys. I've never touched anything mood altering before in my life.
Not even weed?
No. Like I think I smoked weed twice in high school. Okay. And then just got scared of it because I was like, I know I like this, but I also don't like not being in control. And I've done 2 journeys back to back, guided. Like I did it the right way, you know, like you do the integration before, the integration after. There's a person who, you know, helps. She sources it from a community that actually they grow it as though it's a prayer.
Wow.
Which, I mean, you know, it's not just like, oh, this strain is the most powerful, whatever. Like it's adherent to the idea that there's religiosity embedded in that which would connect us to the divine. And I've done 2 journeys, and they've been the most profound experience of my life. And I know that's obnoxious to say, because if you've done it, you're like, of course. And if you haven't done it, you're like, you're a druggie. But for those that are on the fence, all I'll say is, I was pushed in that direction because there were people that I respected that pursued that. And if I can be one data point in the direction of, man, it's worth trying.
Interesting.
I've never experienced anything like that. Somebody told me that mushrooms specifically, your brain creates grooves because of the patterns that you execute on a daily basis, and the grooves become deeper. And so like maybe you have like repetitive thought patterns and positive and negative habits, you know, that kind of habituated action ends up creating grooves in your brain, and all mushrooms do is smooth out the grooves.
Wow.
So you come out of it, not like a changed person per se, but with the ability to change because you now are a little bit more of a blank slate. You can still run those scripts, but then there's other scripts that are available and accessible to you. And that's been amazing.
And that makes a lot of sense because they're doing studies on depression and how mushrooms are actually fixing it. So if these people have the grooves in their brain because of being depressed. Yeah. So it's just leveling it out and then people can reset, right? Right. Wow. That makes a ton of sense. So you did mushrooms both times?
Both times, yeah. 2 different strains. And she explained to me, well, she's very intentional about what strain she gives me. Like the first one was much softer. It was interesting. It was softer. It was far more masculine in temperament, but softer. And then the second one was feminine in temperament.
All right, guys, shout out to LinkedIn, today's sponsor. As a B2B marketer, you know how noisy the ad space can be. If your message isn't targeted to the right audience, it just disappears into the noise. Luckily, with LinkedIn ads, you could precisely reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. With LinkedIn's targeting capabilities, you can reach them by job title, industry, company, and more. Stand out with LinkedIn ads and start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. LinkedIn ads allows you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful environment. You'll have direct access and build relationships with decision makers. There's over 1 billion members on their platform, 180 million senior level executives and 10 million C-level executives. You'll be able to drive results with targeting and measurement tools built specifically for B2B. In technology, LinkedIn generated 2 to 5x higher return on ad spend than other social media platforms. You'll work with a partner who respects the B2B world you operate in. 79% of their content marketers said LinkedIn produces the best results for paid media. Me personally, I've found some great podcast guests, and it's been an incredible platform for finding out new information. Start converting your B2B audience into high quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/social to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/social. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
But kind of harsh, like kind of, Whoa. It sort of was like teasing. And then I had the most healing experience of my life the first time. I met every iteration of me from a newborn to 19, which is where I, for some reason, housed most of my trauma. It's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. And I actually got to meet those people. And then I thought I stopped there, but then it kept going. And then I met myself in the future.
Whoa.
And he was cool, man. He was to be admired. Like it's a vision to live into, to see this person that you could be, and then feel like you're called to something greater. And again, if you haven't done it, I know it sounds a little like whatever it is.
These are some intense mushrooms, because I've done mushrooms, but I wasn't hallucinating on that level.
Oh, dude. So what she has me do is, first of all, I did the hero's dose both. I did 5 the first time. Was it 5 grams or would it be 5 milligrams?
5 grams.
So I did 5 grams the first time and 6 the second. And I'm wearing an eye mask the entire time.
Oh, wow.
And I'm in a bed, and she makes a cocoon with a weighted blanket.
Holy
And
crap.
we do like prayer, meditation, and stretching beforehand. You set an intention. And it's because, the experience isn't just the chemical, right? Like you have to be accessible to it. There's you're fasting 3 days prior to. You consume no animal products. Like she's amazing, bro.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't do any of that prep work, so that makes sense.
It's unbelievable. It's worth doing.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth.
I might have to text you about that. You had a couple interesting Facebook posts I want to dive into.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I went through your Facebook. I love how raw you are on Facebook. You said, as you got older, you feel the cost of wasted time more and more. That's deep.
We don't have time, right? Like that's the one thing you don't have. And I feel the pressure of the gift that we're being given. And even now, like I'm like, the pregnant pauses and all the things that you'd be able to do with this moment. Like the people you could talk to other than me. Like I'm taking from you, I'm taking your life. Time is all you have from a life perspective. If you look at like if this were Sim City, right? The bar at the top would be how much time does Sean have left? And here's Kasim just swallowing up Sean's time with like horse philosophy.
That's one way of looking at it.
Or maybe I could be giving not to you. And then what I love about a platform like what you have is it's all at scale. So the cost is at scale, but the benefit is at scale too. And the way that you scaled up specifically, not to pander, dude, but I went down the Sean Kelly rabbit hole and I knew I was going to be on the show. And it's amazing to see, and you're not the only one, but I think you're a really good shining light of it. It's amazing to see how a message offered at scale, the impact that has. Dude, from an anthropological perspective, this has never, ever, 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 ever happened before. Right? Like we had the printing press, and that was a revolution. Modern Christianity exists because of the printing press.
Wow.
Because of its ability to scale. But look what you can do. Like you post one video and instantly hundreds of thousands, millions of people have seen that and they've been impacted by it. There's this really fun, I'm going to evoke somebody that I hope I don't get nailed for, but I'm obsessed with Jordan Peterson. I call him my digital dad. I'm so sorry if that offends people. And he has this 7-minute video online. It's the most important message I've ever been exposed to in my entire life. He said that there's 2 ways to conceptualize yourself. The first way is that you're one speck of dust among billions, in which case, who gives a it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Life is meaningless.
Right.
Fine. That doesn't do you any good. The second way to conceptualize yourself is that you're a node in a network. and you know 1,000 people, and they know 1,000 people, which means that you're one person away from 1 million people and 2 people away from 1 billion people.
Whoa.
And if you think about the redundancy in those 1,000 people, that actually amplifies who you are as a node. And then somebody like you, your node, dude, if you think about like the amount of people you have the ability to impact, the responsibility tied to that is insane. And it's all tied to time, how you use your time. Like we were talking before we started recording, you're pounding these interviews out because you're being so productive with your time. And if there is a God, that's what God gave you. That's all God gave anybody. He gave us a body, he gave us the form for action that is the world, and he gave us time. So it's X and Y and a Z axis. And it's the Z axis that we waste. Right? And even when you're dishonoring the other 2 axes, you're doing it with the Z axis. That's the weapon in your hand is time. And we don't spend enough time thinking about how we use our time. That's why money's so important. Money's a representation of time. Yes. Money's a store of value. That's why the Federal Reserve and fiat currency is a pernicious, evil, open-air conspiracy lie, because you're taking time from people. When you take time from people, you kill them on a micro scale. It's micro-murder. And so wasting time is micro.
I'm not a fan of it. I get uncomfortable when I waste my time. When people waste my time, for real. I feel it in my body because I know we have a limited amount, and to reach the impact I want to in this life, change the education system, accomplish my goals, I know time needs to be something I'm thinking about daily.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not as extreme as, who's that one guy that plans his day but every 5 minutes? Rob Dyrdek?
I don't know.
You don't know Rob Dyrdek? Oh, so he has a calendar, every 5 minutes is planned.
Stop it.
But I don't want to live like that.
No, that's neuroses now. Yeah, that's actually a waste of time.
I do not like having days full of calls, though.
Oh, no, dude.
I'm not a fan of that. I like how Alex Becker approaches his time.
How does he do it?
No calls.
Okay.
All text or email. And look at him. He's running a 9-figure company.
Yeah, I got a buddy that does that, John Vroman. He runs Front Row Dads, which is a mastermind that I'm in. And he's very big on open days. And if you ask him if he has time, the answer is yes, maybe. You know what I mean? It's like it depends on what I feel. And he sets up those boundaries, and everybody adheres to it. They just move around him. It's beautiful.
I love that. One other post on Facebook, I didn't know about this, but you said small fires are good for forests.
I don't remember where I learned this. I wish I could offer proper citation. But a natural forest fire clears out the brush, the undergrowth. And actually that soil, the post-fire soil, is nutrient dense. And so it helps the forests. But what we as humans have done is we stop forest fires for a bunch of reasons, especially if they're near city centers or any habitation. And by stopping forest fires, the brush grows. But it grows so big and so high that when there is a fire that we can't stop, now the fire has the ability to reach the tree canopy, which is where the big trees are threatened, because the small fires don't threaten big trees. Their trunks are well equipped and actually built for the fire. But when you stop the small fires, the brush grows so high that when there's a fire that we can't stop, it reaches the tree canopy, and then the whole forest dies. And the metaphor that I used, or the way I drew upon that, was specifically in relationships, especially as a young man, I avoided small fires. And I thought I was being mature. I thought I was being altruistic. And all that happened was the brush grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And then the big fire was
too much to handle.
Yeah. And then I've lost friendships, really important, critical relationships. I've irreparably damaged some of my most important relationships because I wouldn't just have that hard conversation.
Wow.
And I've gotten so good now. I'm actually a little obnoxious. I'm a tragic over-communicator. But it'd be like, hey, Sean, it's not a big deal. I'm sure you didn't mean it this way, but when you said this, for some reason, I interpreted it as that. And I would love to, if you don't mind, if you have a moment, can we talk about it? And then what happens, Jordan Peterson says, to evoke him again, if you tell the truth, what happens afterwards is the ideal outcome. And so if I say that and you're like, bro, you're sensitive, go, I'm done. Now I know, hey, Sean's not for me. You're not my dude, and that's okay. Like, I've set up this boundary, and I can't control how you respond to my boundaries, but I can control how I respond to you responding to my boundary. Or you can be like, dude, I'm so sorry. And now we're actually closer. And what my personal experience has been most people, when you take that approach, feel safer with you. Because they're like, oh, I know if I do something to Sean, he's going to tell me, so I can actually be myself with you. Whereas in 99.9, no hyperbole, 99.9% of all social relationships, we're actually combatants in a way. Because if I say the wrong thing to you right now, I'm going to set you off. And if you say the wrong thing to me, you're going to set me off. And we don't even realize that. And that's an anthropological truth too, because 100,000 years ago, you and I have different racial backgrounds, same eye color, different hair. We're the same height, different skin tones. We're probably going to fight, right? 100,000 years ago, we're different tribes. We're going to kill each other.
Wow.
And that's an epigenetic truth that hasn't left us yet. So we're now docile. We're like trained chimpanzees, but at the root of it, in your reptilian mind, there's still this really important standoff that's happening. And I think the way to bring the reptilian mind into the mammalian mind, let's say, if I can say words that I don't even understand, is to have those conversations. It's those little fires. Yeah. It's the little fight that stops the big fight. But then what it does is now we're connected. Like you and I aligned in a way that's actually intimate. And people are even afraid of that word. They'd be afraid of the word intimacy, but and especially between two men, because that's a danger too. But for you and I to connect in a way that will allow for my vulnerability to enable you to better connect with me further brought us closer to a degree that without that investment could never exist.
Wow.
Little fires.
You just explained why people are racist. That was crazy. Dang. So it's the reptilian mind from thousands of years ago.
I think, and again, this isn't me either, but most racism is in-group preference and novelty response. I actually don't think I was raised by Southern Baptists.
Oh, yeah?
My mom's, you can't tell by looking at me, but my mom's white. My whole family is West Virginian Southern. People you would characterize as racist. Good people, but they're conservative by nature, and it's in-group preference, meaning I just prefer people that are like me, which, by the way, is a survival mechanism. Because when you're like me, I know how you're going to respond.
Right.
When we have the same values, the same virtues, the same principles, and then something catches fire, I know how you're going to prioritize. That's really important. So in-group preference, and then just novelty response. People confuse, people come up to me all the time like, where are you from? What's your background? That you could view as, well, that's racist, right? But it's not. It's just, you're a little different, and I want to know why. I'm actually taking an interest in you. Sometimes the novelty response is done with a lack of sophistication, and I think we should have some grace for that. But I don't think most of what we characterize as racist actually is racist at its core. Wow. I think it can become that, especially if you only view it in the soundbite. Richard Rohr says that things become when you just view parts. It's not if you're looking like two people making love isn't if you're looking at the whole of what's happening, of what's actually taking place. It's when you're just looking at it for this particular sliver.
Interesting.
And so I don't think things become racist until we start looking at just this angle. I just want to prove this point.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, people just want to feel safe, right?
People
just want to be around people they could predict.
Dude, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like that's one of the that's the base.
Yeah.
And I need to make sure I feel safe around you, and you need to make sure you feel safe around me. And there are differences that could impact our ability to be safe to and for each other.
I mean, look at prisons. That's a good example.
My little brother spent 6 years in a 4-yard.
Your little brother?
My baby brother is the only non-white person to ever hold the keys to the house of an Aryan Brotherhood control yard.
Holy crap.
Bro, you want to talk about, if he was born to a different family in a different time, he'd be a general. He's the hardest human I've ever known in my life. He's brilliant. He's got a 160 some odd IQ. He just,
damn.
And that's what happens. You could take me and my brother, a blind single mother on Social Security disability in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and that's the route. And so he, 6 years on a 4-yard. I asked my brother, I said, how many people in a 4-yard? I keep saying that, by the way, because that's as high as it goes.
Security 4.
You're the 80% of the prison population is in protective custody. Only 20% of the prison population is actually real convicts.
Oh, wow.
And it's no joke in there. And I asked him, I said, his name's Sammy. Sammy, how many people in prison belong in prison? And he said, nobody their first time. Everybody their second time. So and it's always young men, all of the young men that we put in prison, their first time are fragile, broken, hurting, generally addicts in some way, even if it's not a drug addiction. And then prison becomes an animal factory where we introduce them to the network and the people and the institution that would be necessary for them to become real convicts. And we're the ones creating these prisoners. And I saw it through what my brother went through. It's inbuilt into the system. The system perpetuates itself by creating inventory. Prisoners are inventory. We have the largest prison population in the world.
Holy crap. I didn't know that.
Dude, the U.S. has the largest prison population in the world, I think both per capita and just in total. I think something like, nobody quote me on this because I know there's fact checkers that watch, but I think 5% of the U.S. population at some point will touch jail or prison.
Holy
something
crap.
insane.
I mean, even I went to jail. So
dude,
yeah,
something insane.
I can see that.
Yeah, and it's once you're in the system, it's so hard to get out. It's near impossible. If you ever want a good interview, dude, my little brother, he's got some story. I don't know how many of them he can tell.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the paths you two took because you grew up in the same household, but two totally different paths.
Yeah.
That is crazy to me. Was there like pivotal moments you look back on?
I was 19 years old.
That caused that?
I mentioned in my journey, the worst thing I ever did. I was 19. I was in Albuquerque. I was play acting. I wanted to be a thug because that was the hierarchical structure that where we were. That was the top of the dominance hierarchy.
Got it.
But I'm a 9 foot tall, half Pakistani kid who's nerdy as hell. I wasn't going to be, you know what I mean? Like nobody was going to let me play that role, but I was pretending. I was trying as hard as I could to do that. And I was running around just doing kid stuff, you know, like we were petty crime is how I'll characterize it. But when I was given the opportunity to run away and be a coward, I took it. And I ran and I left my little brother who was 4 years younger than me. So I left when I was 19 years old. So he was 15 years old. And I left him in an environment that I created. And I left him surrounded by people and performing acts that would ultimately lead to what got him in prison. And when I was play acting, he wasn't. He was what I was trying to be. And he's a lot different than I am. You know, you look at me, I'm kind of awkward. I built like a tree. I'm tall, but I'm not big. Sammy's me perfected. He looks like Adonis. He's like broad, and he's prison ripped. Prison ripped is one standard deviation more ripped than gay ripped. Like he's just like, and dude, like he can just throw down.
Yeah.
And he's always been that way. And so I put him in the, what would you call it? I put him in the breeding environment for what happened next. And what happened next is kind of exactly what you thought. He's entrepreneurial in nature. And so when you're in that world and you're entrepreneurial, you don't start a business, right? You find other approaches. And this is all public record, so you can Google his name and see what he did. So I'm not hiding anything, but...
That's interesting. So you felt somewhat responsible for leaving him?
It was my fault 100% without question. Yeah, that was me. I did that.
Wow. So no accountability to him, all on you.
It's interesting. The Jesuits used to say, give me until a child is 6 and you can have him for the rest of his life. My brother had me. I was there to define what it was to be. I was only 4 years older than him, but I'm the one that posited a value structure that got him in trouble. And I did it before he had left the stage in life where you can even question what you're being taught. So, I mean, of course, he's responsible and accountable, and we all are to ourselves. But how unfair it would be. Imagine being 3 years old, and your father is a 7-year-old who's hateful, vengeful, wants to hurt people, wants to steal, you know what I mean? And that's the person teaching you.
Right.
So is that fair to me? No. Is that what happened? Yeah, that's what happened.
Dang, that's deep.
And, you know, that's just what it is, man. Like, that's the thing, my new obsession is forgiveness. I need to learn, Sean, what it means, how to do it, where it is, because forgiveness feels like betrayal. Like if I were to forgive myself, I'm betraying what I did to my brother. But I know I need to, because I know that'll.
Was that what came up when you were seeing your 19-year-old self?
Yeah, that was, and my 19-year-old self, when I met him, he was in this picture like Stonehenge, but way more stones and different heights and cavernous. And I didn't know where he was. And when I saw him, he was so angry at me. And he was so betrayed because I had no grace for him. He was 19, he was afraid, he had no future, and there was an out that was given. But I didn't know my dad very well, and my dad at one point found out that I was doing what I was doing, and he offered to let me come live with him in Scottsdale. So I go from, have you ever been to Albuquerque?
I haven't actually.
Don't go. Have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
That's Albuquerque.
Oh, wow.
With way less white people. Breaking Bad has like 10 times as many Caucasians as Albuquerque actually has, which is relevant, I think, because it gives you a sense as to the media mix, let's say, of that demographic compared to, I go to Scottsdale, Arizona, and I moved from little ghetto kid being raised by a blind woman on welfare to my dad had a rug store, was pretending to be rich, but had kind of finally found a pocket of life where he could be successful. So I switched, and dude, I up quick. I started wearing Dockers, and I changed the way that I spoke, and I enunciated, and I just flipped it. And And maybe that was an okay thing to do. Like maybe it was like, oh, you found the escape hatch. But I've hated myself for it ever since. And then meeting myself at 19 and there was an embrace. I got to hug myself at 19 years old. I got to apologize for putting everything that I've ever done wrong on the shoulders of this 19-year-old kid that didn't know any better. And I can't say I've forgiven myself fully, but I've started the journey and it's so healing.
Wow.
It's so, so healing.
Yeah, I need to look into that because there's some regrets I still have, honestly. Yeah, with people. You know, I think it's important to forgive and let it go.
Yeah, regrets you have?
Just for previous friendships I wish I handled differently.
Yeah.
You know, there's been a few really close friends that I've lost touch with, and I feel like I could have handled it better.
Yeah. Are there people you'd want to rekindle with, or just close the door better?
Probably close the door better.
Yeah.
You know, I think what's in the past, I don't want to dwell on it too much longer. I'm 27 now, so some of these relationships are from my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that stuff eats at you. I saw what happened with my dad, man, because he ran away at 18, never forgave his parents.
Never spoke to him again?
Yeah. And the day his grandmother, my grandmother, his mother died, she came to me in my dream and was looking for my dad.
No way.
They never rekindled. And they had so much just love for each other, but they just never, you know. So I don't want that.
No, he can never go back.
Yeah.
Has he addressed that, or is it?
I told him about it. He just thought it was BS, but he's not as spiritual as I am. It's yeah.
It's a closed door for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. How old is he? Do you mind me asking?
He passed away too, but he was living with all that just for gratitude.
Forever.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
Because his dad physically abused him his whole life, so he was just so traumatized.
What was his name? Your father?
Mike.
Mike.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah,
that's so hard.
I got his middle name, carrying on the legacy.
Yeah.
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 It's deep, man. Everyone has their traumas, right? Even if you grow up in a nice-ass house.
Bro, maybe those people weren't anybody, you know, because not being given permission to feel traumatized, that's a trauma unto itself. You know, like, and I know some people that are in that boat to where they're like, hey, what I went through was hard too, and I'm not even allowed to talk about it. If you're blonde hair, blue-eyed, male, and born in middle or upper middle class society, there's something about your opinion that doesn't matter. And, dude, I think that's so wrong.
Yeah, trust fund babies.
Yeah, I think that's so, and that's my kids now. You know, my kids will be multimillionaires before they're 18 years old. I've got it all set up for them. And I worry about that because I'm like, they still matter. They're still worthy. They're still relevant. And they both look white. One of my boys is, you know, green-eyed.
Wow.
And you would hope that we don't punish them for the way they look. Like, why is racism acceptable that way?
Yeah. Well, some of these kids that grow up in rich environments have the worst mental issues.
Oh, without question. Yeah, dude, I live in Scottsdale. I see that all the time. You want to talk about neglect? Like, they're raised by the nanny or the au pair. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to spend time with your family no matter how wealthy you get, right?
Children spell love Time. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you have all this money, some people keep chasing it.
Right.
But I'm at the point now where, like, I could retire, so now it's about purpose, passion. I don't need more money. I mean, I'd like it. But
money's how we keep score. Yeah. So that's just how I know I'm doing it right. It's like, oh, okay, that's profitable. You know? And I'll keep at that. But I'm with, dude, I drive a 40-year-old Honda.
Wow.
I live in a home that's 2 tax brackets beneath my net worth level. And that's not to, I hope I'm not virtue signaling. That's just to say that I'm with you. I want $100 million net to me after taxes. That's my next goal.
Yeah.
Not because I don't need a bigger house. I don't need a bigger car. I don't care. But it gets me in a room that I might not be in. It gives me access. It gives me time. I can hire people I wouldn't be able to afford to hire otherwise. I have access to experiences. And then if I want to, I can give.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. I want all of them. After I get $100 million, I'm going to get $1 billion.
Ooh.
After I get $1 billion, you know, as long as I do it within my buy box. Like my buy box is I want to be a dad first. I want my time. I don't want a ton of meetings. I never want to be on the org chart of an organization that I own ever. Do not call me. I don't work here. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I love that. That perfect segue into hiring. So right now you're hiring a lot offshores. You're getting C-level suite people for $2,000 a month.
Dude, it's insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. This is and actually a friend of mine just sent me a podcast where somebody else has now kind of discovered this too, which pissed me off a little bit. I thought I was smart. So it's all over the world, but I'm right now obsessed with Latin America, specifically Argentina. The Argentinian economy has collapsed. They just elected the first anarcho capitalist ever elected to public office. I have a lot of hope for them actually, but their currency is devalued to the point of being worthless. And yet the Argentinians they have one of the highest college educated populations, the most amount of economists produced per capita in the world, brilliant, phenomenal English proficiency. Not that matters. It's not a hallmark of intelligence, but it is a hallmark of education in this society. And like, so my personal financial analyst, when I made all my money, the worst thing to do to poor people is give them money because we think we're investors.
Right.
My investment strategy is buy high, sell low. So far, not working. So I have all these investments and I've made all these deployments and I've got all these like angel whatever and all these businesses and I'm not managing it well. I hire this gentleman, professional economist, college professor, $1,500 a month full-time USD. Brilliant. He starts pumping out these reports, looking at my investment portfolio. I've got a bunch of houses in Fargo, North Dakota. And it turns out that actually my investment portfolio is perfectly profitable except one door. One house is dragging everything down, but I never would have known that had he not done the analysis.
Wow.
So all my friends start looking at some of the stuff he's sharing with me, and they're like, how are you doing this? And he's not alone, dude. Like it's not all of Latin America per se, but I really like Argentina, Colombia. Venezuela's tough because the infrastructure there is so rough. Power goes out a lot, internet goes out a lot, but the population is well-educated, hardworking. There's some nuances that you have to figure out, but man, making international talent accessible to Western companies, it's a passion of mine. I own a recruiting agency called Pareto Talent. I've placed 10 VAs so far. I want to place 100 by the end of this year, 1,000 by the end of next year, 10,000 by the year after that. And it's such a win-win because the average Argentinian is making $300 USD a month.
Wow.
I pay my guys $1,500.
5x.
So imagine making 5x your peers. It frees them up entirely. Esteban, the guy I told you about, he gets to stay at home. He's with his kid. He has a 4-month-old son. Like, I've changed his life. His words, not mine. And then he's changed mine. So you take somebody, you pay him 5x what they could make domestically. You house them with an entrepreneur that's what? Overwhelmed, overworked, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to do it. And you allow that symbiotic relationship to just spiral up, win-win-win across the board.
Yeah.
And then you keep doing that. And you can play the whole, you're still in American jobs. But here's the thing. I've tried to hire domestically. I'm not. Because those people aren't available and accessible to me. His level of talent goes to Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook. I can't afford that. Even if I could afford the salary, I don't have the conference room and the $12 croissants and the cachet. So going internationally, dude, smart people exist all over the damn world. What hubris to think that this is the only country that produces exceptional talent. As a matter of fact, I think the pendulum has swung the other way. So yeah, I think open yourself up to international talent because when I sold my business, I sold it 40% margins in an industry that aims at 15% margins, and I did it because I had an international staff. So you can't argue with the numbers.
Yeah, because if you hired domestically, it would have been 15% like everyone else.
Aiming at 15, trying, grasping. Right. You know, like if I'd have got there, I would have had the most efficient agency in the world.
Yeah. How are you measuring their work output? Is there software to do that?
I don't track hours. I don't screenshot desktops.
Really?
I don't do anything, none of it, bro. So the point is to build businesses that can be measured on exactly what you just said. How are you measuring their output? Why do I care that you work 8 hours? Why is that? What an arbitrary measure, right? Like, what does it matter? You go watch Netflix for 8 hours and 56 minutes as long as in 4 minutes you're able to do this. This is worth what I paid you today. And you have your output structured based on output. I don't build businesses where I can't do that. I don't bill hourly, I bill by output, which by the way, anybody who bills hourly is on the wrong side of the fulcrum because the fulcrum is what is leverageable. And think about the way AI is going to go. AI is going to amplify the output of resources to a point to where if you're billing hourly, you're going to have to produce hundreds, if not thousands of times the output and still get paid on an hourly basis. Whereas if you're charging by output, you're on the right side of the fulcrum. And AI just amplified what you made. So no, never, ever, 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 ever time for money. Horrible trade. Horrible trade. There's no leverage to it, which means I'm not going to pay that way either. So like with my financial team, it's, hey, we have we're launching, and poorly, by the way, this isn't a pitch. What Esteban did for me, I want to do for other people. So I'm launching a fractional CFO agency, maybe, playing with it. But I'm not asking my financial, because you need a CPA and you need a bookkeeper and you need a client manager. They don't have to invest a certain amount of time. They have to manage a certain number of clients. And we'll figure out what that looks like. But maybe it's 30 clients. Hey, if you keep the books clean on 30 clients, not only do I not care what you do, I don't care if you do the work. You outsource this, good on you. That's entrepreneurial. You find a software that does that, that's great. Train me how to do it so I can do that with the other 15 people and I'll reward you for doing it. But the output should be the measure upon which people are paid and I charge. And not doing so is a massively inefficient business model, and I'll fight to the death anybody who disagrees with me.
I love it. I mean, most industries would disagree with you, but I'm a fan of work results. You eat what you kill.
Right.
You know, I was never a fan of hourlies. I mean,
dude, the best people aren't, right? Like if you want peak performers, if you want the best people in the world, pay them based off of what they're able to produce and then watch them produce. Because that's the other thing too, is people are going to gamify the system. Oh, you want me to work 8 hours? I'm going to do the least amount I can do in order not to get fired. if you pay me based on my output, what you find is this massive Pareto distribution. And the nice thing about the Pareto distribution is it's true at every level of analysis. So 20% of your employees do 80% of the work. Fine. Take the 20%. 20% of those do 80% of the work. Fine. Take that 20%. 20% of those do 80% of the work. And it's because you're going to find those people that continue to gamify. When I sold my Google Ads agency, one employee who became a business partner, I gave him 10% equity because I couldn't afford to lose him. One employee managed 54% of my revenue.
Wow.
Because he saw, oh, the more I do, the more I get paid. Yes, please. It's John Moran. He's the best Google Ads mind in the world. In the world. Charges $2,500 an hour right now and gets it to manage Google Ads campaigns. He's brilliant.
Crazy.
And I incentivized him in a way that allowed him to map his own destiny.
Yeah. And that's a good segue into my next topic, because you have a theory about Meta and Google that they're built algorithmically to eat all your margins.
Dude, I can prove it. So I built the largest Google Ads agency in the world, the largest dedicated Google Ads agency in the world. I had $100 million in ad spend under management. I had 200 some odd clients, more than that, but 200 I can't call them enterprise clients, but we'll say full spectrum clients. I can prove with data. Dude, this is an antitrust suit. This should happen. If there's an attorney watching, somebody do something. It's insane. Their mechanism, imagine for a moment an auctioneer, okay? You go to an auction. You've been to auctions, I imagine, estate auctions. You go to an auction, but imagine the auctioneer is actually the one that profits. They're not a third party. Not only do they profit, but they can see everybody who's going to bid on every piece of inventory. Not only can they see what everybody's going to bid, they can see how much they're willing to bid. Not only can they see how much they're willing to bid, they can see how much they're going to make on it after the fact. How could you not build it in algorithmically to maximize the profit potential of your inventory so that every person bidding on the auction is bidding at the maximum that they'd be willing to pay, so that they're making 1 penny more than they need to make before they cancel? And what's interesting about it, and you'll notice that this happens in both Google and Meta campaigns, when the campaigns start to perform, your CPCs and your CPM go up. You don't know what that means? It's your cost per click and your cost per milli, which is Latin for 1,000, cost per view. The cost of your traffic increases as soon as your campaigns start to perform. Here's the hack. Check it out. It's insane. Don't track conversions, that's the worst advice any media buyer's ever given you in the history of the world. But if you're a business owner and you're running traffic, don't tell Google, don't tell Meta when you're successful. Guess what happens? As long as you have good creative going to a good audience, you trust your creative, you trust your audience, what else is there? Your good creative to a good audience with a good offer is going to result in conversions. But you don't tell Meta and you don't tell Google that people are converting, meaning you don't track conversions on page, you don't allow them to track any of your data, you capture all that stuff first party. And you'll notice that pari passu, those two things split test against each other. Where I'm tracking conversions and I'm not tracking conversions, my cost per traffic will be fractions.
Wow.
When I'm not tracking, like a 10th, a 50th, 100th.
Holy crap.
What's even worse is they're taking your traffic and they're using it to build audiences. I wear Cuts shirts. I like them. They have a nice fit. They don't wrinkle. Blah, blah, blah. Cuts commercials. Who cares? There's 4 Cuts competitors. Cuts is a brand. CUTS. There's 4 Cuts competitors. And try this. If you go to Cuts website right now today, Cuts has the Facebook pixel on their website. You get pixeled. You'll start seeing ads for Cuts shirts. If you don't buy a Cuts shirt in roughly 14 to 21 days, you'll start seeing ads for Cuts competitors.
No way.
Meta used Cuts traffic and media spend to build an audience that they sold to Cuts competitors. That's insane.
Wow.
And because what are you gonna do? Use the other Facebook? So they're stealing your audiences. They're stealing all of your margin. It used to be that we could run ads and make money on the front end, right? So I'm selling this thing for $30 and I ran ads and it cost me $3 to acquire a customer. So it used to be that I could actually run ads, make money. Then it was I run ads and I break even on the product, but I make money on the order bump or the upsell. Then it was I run ads and I break even on the upsell, but I make money on the next month, let's say, the rebuy. And then it was, well, I break even on the rebuy, but I make money on the lifetime value of the customer. They keep moving the line of demarcation for profitability in their favor. We are in a traffic bubble. There are so many industries. Before I sold my agency, I'd never touch residential realty. I'd never trust general dentistry. I won't touch non-consumable e-commerce at all. I can't touch SaaS. Salesforce is banking off a 30-year lifetime value of a customer. 30 years.
Jeez.
They're willing to spend how much it takes them. They're willing to spend how much they make up to 29 years and 364 days. How do you compete with that? You can't. And Google and Meta have algorithmically optimized the situation in their favor, obviously, because how could you not? I'm not a software engineer. Bring a software engineer in here and explain to me how they could build it any other way. It'd be impossible. That you can't pretend, there could be no Chinese curtain that tells you like, oh, I can see all this, but I'm not going to use it. It's impossible. And so we're just spending into this ecosystem, and we're looking at a traffic bubble that it's stealing all entrepreneurial profitability. And it's going to be really interesting to see, because I actually think the bubble's going to burst. And I think there's a huge opportunity on the other end of that.
I'm glad you brought light to this, because this isn't really talked about.
Dude, again, antitrust, like somebody needs to sue somebody.
Yeah, someone needs to look into that data, man. That is crazy. Well, man, I guess what do you got coming up next? What are you passionate about? What are you excited about this year?
I like employing emerging people in emerging nations. I own a mastermind. That's fun. You do a bunch of mastermind stuff.
What's yours called?
Driven.
I've heard about it.
That's with Perry, Belcher, Jason Fladlin.
Oh, is that with Damon John or no?
Yeah. No, that's Damon's is that's a good one too. That's Rise Nation.
Okay.
That's Damon, Ryan, and Roland. I like those guys. What else do I do? That's it. Bro, I'm trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I appreciate this. Feels so, just being able to talk. Like, I have that sad, pathetic personality that enjoys attention.
Yeah.
So for whatever it's worth, I really appreciate you having me on. This is awesome.
I think we all do deep down, right?
Yeah.
Want to be heard.
I think we all do. Yeah.
Yeah, for real. Well, yeah, that was great, man. Thanks for coming. I'll link your socials below.
That's great.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys, as always. See you tomorrow.
Appreciate y'all.